was a beautiful day in Washington, D.C.
I saw the first plane fly by. The next thing I knew, it was on the TV.
Moments later, another aircraft, a commercial aircraft, came onto the screen and disappeared. And the next thing I see is a big ball of flames coming out of the other side of the South Tower.
And at that point, everyone gasped and we were just in shock.
And then I heard the screaming, and I turned and I looked down First Avenue, and I see a cloud of smoke and people running up the street.
We could both feel the impact on the Pentagon.
The smoke filled half the sky. I mean, it was more smoke than I had ever seen in my life.
That day changed everything for me and the city where I'm from.
It was just kind of a moment of realization of everything will change after this day.
On September 11th, I was working as a screening manager for one of the contract companies at Newark Liberty International Airport. One of my checkpoints was the checkpoint where United Airlines Flight 93 departed on a daily basis. There were a group of children going on a class trip, saying goodbye to their parents. There were flight attendants, flight crew that I developed friendships with. We spoke and we said to see you later. I also noticed a man who seemed out of place at the time, who was later identified as one of the terrorists on 9/11. A few minutes after UA-93 departed, I got a call informing me that a plane had hit the first tower of the World Trade Center. I later learned that the children I saw saying goodbye to their parents were never coming back. The flight crew that I developed friendships with were not coming back. And the Port Authority, who had their headquarters at the World Trade Center, who had officers who worked at Newark Airport, those officers weren't coming back on duty.
My mom was the head of civilian personnel compensation for the Department of Defense. The day after 9/11, she stood up a 24-hour center for all of the personnel that were victims at the Pentagon, but for their families. She was a place the families could go and could get information on their loved ones, what hospital they were taken to, if they were declared among the dead. She made sure that every family had the benefits that they deserved. She was dedicated that she was going to keep those families with some hope. She didn't close down the center until the last victim was out of the hospital. And it's just, you know, she's an inspiration.
The towers were a symbol of New York City. It's hard to put into words what it is like to see buildings of that size go down into a toxic heap. It was not only about New York, it was about the nation. So it was a day that we all knew would really be a defining moment going forward.
In August of 2002, my dad and I had an impromptu vacation trip. And my dad said, you know what, let's keep going. Let's go to New York. I'm like, okay. So we drove all the way to Manhattan. But he said to me, hey, let's go down to Ground Zero. And I was like, okay. Glad to be in New York, but okay. When I went down to Ground Zero, it was cleared out. 2 giant holes in the ground. You can still feel it in the air a year later. And I said to myself, if there's anything that I can do within my power to stop something like this from ever happening again, I'm going to do it. Right then and there, in August of 2002, I made a pact that I was going to protect this country in any way, shape I could. And I fortunately got the opportunity to get a job as a transportation security officer in Richmond. And that's where my TSA journey began.
I get the opportunity and the reassurance to know that the job that I'm doing is making sure that America is truly a safer place.
I drove my passion to respond, protecting the nation's aviation system. I wanted to be a part of that.
Every day we have to make this commitment because we never know if this is going to happen again.
I felt it was very important to protect the nation from the fear that comes with terrorism, from the danger, from the threats.
The events of 9/11 really left a lot of us out there that were trying to do our best to serve and protect with this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And TSA really provided that mission set where I could do both.
Being a veteran, it was just another chance to serve. I had no idea what TSA was going to be like, but I knew I had to be part of it.
How they turned an airplane into a steerable weapon of mass destruction was something that I felt as an air marshal I could come to and I could possibly prevent from ever happening again. And I wanted to be a part of that calling and a part of that defense for our nation.
There's an immediacy that drives this agency. The threat is constant and constantly changing around us.
Our adversaries are not limited by budget cycles, they're not limited by a lack of ingenuity. They're constantly at work trying to figure out ways to harm us. And so the way that we counter that is that we also have to be innovative and think of new policies, processes, and technology to make sure that we are staying ahead of those emerging threats.
I'm continually surprised in a very good way of the breadth and depth of our mission and the commitment and creativity of our workforce.
We're not just airport screening, we're protecting infrastructure, we're protecting cyber networks. So there's all these different aspects of how to serve that people aren't even thinking of.
There's no better place to keep people safe than working at TSA.
The number one thing that gets me up in the morning is the fact that we are doing good. We're a strong agency that helps protect the traveling public, and I feel very good about that.
One of the things that it energizes me as a person is that the amount of work that's being done by all components within TSA. And as a leader, I think about how blessed I am to be surrounded by amazing people.
And when I go through a checkpoint, I feel extraordinarily safe. My daughter's a nervous flyer, and she always calls me after security, and she said, "Mom, you're right. Today I'm going to get to where I'm going because of the TSA."
I was with the New York City Police Department, and I wanted to make sure that I can do my part to make sure 9/11 never happened again.
So being part of TSA just makes me feel proud that I have the opportunity to prevent anything like that from ever happening again.
I'm very proud with what I do. I'm proud with coaching my team to support the mission and what we do to protect our nation's traveling transportation systems.
I was about to get on a plane. That could have been me. And I made a commitment that day, if I ever had the opportunity to make sure it never happened again, I would throw everything I had into it.
That I will do my best to make sure it won't happen on my shift, my watch.
What I do is important, and I'm just this little tiny piece of this massive machine that without the little piece, that little part of what I do, the machine doesn't operate. There's days you're going to wake up and you're going, oh my gosh, am I really affecting, am I really impacting the mission, am I making a difference? You are. You really are. So don't forget that.
300+ million people in the United States are relying on us to do our job. We have the opportunity to make sure that travel is safe and secure for all those people. That's a pretty noble mission. We're carrying on the legacy that they founded for us, and an ethos to make sure that we're going to be the ones that prevent an aviation attack, prevent a surface transportation attack from happening again. I would challenge anybody to think of an agency in the U.S. federal government that has more impact than we do. We've been entrusted to make sure that this transportation system operates safely and securely, and we do that every single day, 24 hours a day, and have done it successfully for 22 years.